Welcome to Self Wellness.
Another episode of Maha, guys, and we're going to be diving deep into the newest Barbie who's decided that she cannot live without her diabetic medication. We'll be bringing in a good friend, Tim, to talk about that. In the later segment, we're going to have Dr. Peter McCullough, cardiologist, epidemiologist, and the deep state's worst nightmare, come on to talk about why the Johnson & Johnson vaccine knew that it wasn't safe and they rolled out anyways. Without further ado, Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good seeing you.
Absolutely, man. Love what you guys are doing over there at Diabetes Care. Explain to us why Mattel needs to have a Barbie. Like we've had the wheelchair Barbie, and that I understand. Okay, that I kind of agree with. But now a childhood diabetic Barbie has to be rolled out. Are they just conditioning our children and saying this is okay? Let's just normalize kids having diabetes?
Well, there's two things here. Number one, type 1 diabetes is a very serious disease that all children that have it. It's normally developed by an autoimmune condition. Honestly, I think it stems from the vaccines and a couple other things that start an autoimmune condition, because most kids, around 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, get autoimmune type 1, which weren't type 1s before. So I definitely think it's something that attacks the pancreas and makes an autoimmune condition. Type 1 is a very serious disease. These kids go through so many, being a child's tough enough, and then have to regulate what you eat. Kids want to eat what other friends are eating and, have some french fries or a milkshake or things like that. Diabetic type 1s, if they're athletic, they go into really extreme hypo conditions in the middle of the night, which are deadly. And I don't think that a Barbie is going to be the empathy side of what type 1 autoimmune boys and girls are dealing with.
That's just absolutely nutsos, man. So what tell us care and what you guys are there for, and then let's dive into the reason behind why are they making a push. When you get kids getting Barbie dolls to represent what used to be a very, very small, there was no childhood diabetes, or if there was, it was very underdocumented or just didn't exist 30, 40 years ago. And now we have to make a Barbie doll for it. That's not normal.
No, it's not normal. So at U.S. Diabetes Care, number one, we have a lot of kids coming in that parents think they're type 1 because they're young, and guess what? We do a lot of battery of tests. We find out they're actually type 2 diabetic, which is a onset diabetes that we do to ourselves from the processed crap we're putting in our body. Type 1's a totally different disease. It's a total attack on a pancreas that shuts your pancreas down. It doesn't produce any insulin at all. There's no glucagon going to the liver, upload to the muscle. So they actually are insulin dependent. So that's the thing that people got to understand. There's a huge difference between type 1 and type 2. Type 2 actually can be reversed very easily by cleaning out the cells. It's called metabolic syndrome. And actually, type 2, type 3 diabetes is actually is insulin resistance. But type 2, type 3 is a symptom of insulin resistance. And so insulin resistance starts in the cells and lives in the muscles. It can actually lay dormant in the cells and muscles for 10, 15 years before you become type 2, type 3. But type 1 is, once again, attack on the pancreas, no production of insulin, so they're insulin dependent. And I think that's where, the big confusion is with people, is we have to get educated, Mike, on what different diabetes are and what we can do about it. We have an education platform at U.S. Diabetes Care that we can basically reverse type 2, type 3 diabetes. It's at usdiabetescare.com. Anybody that follows the education series, you can get it on Apple and Android as well. You can get it from our website, the Learn More page. But the type 1s, if they follow our program, can have a lot tighter measures and have to use a lot less insulin. Insulin is poison, in my opinion, and type 1s have the hardest road because if they have to be on insulin dependent for many years, it wreaks havoc on their organs, I mean, their kidneys, their eyes, they're high risk for amputation, neuropathy in the eyes and feet and hands. So it's a very dangerous disease, and people need to understand the difference between the two.
And one of the things that I've noticed, and I've seen a lot of stories that are starting to circulate. I've seen people with type 3 diabetes or dementia, any type of brain condition where there's lots of inflammation and sugar that has accumulated inside of the brain. We've seen countless stories about people switching to an organic ketogenic diet and reversing their type 3 diabetes. Have you guys seen things? Have you heard stories about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's several diets, that other people promote. Ketogenic's a great diet. I don't think it's a good diet to be on long term, just because the havoc it does on the kidneys and everything like that. But it's a great diet to reverse type 2, type 3 diabetes for sure. The carnivore diet. I mean, a lot of people are using that to reverse healthcare symptoms. We particularly use Loma Linda. So we're actually a Loma Linda Center for Lifestyle Education. Dr. Castro, who you guys showed there earlier, has an internal medicine degree, and he was westernized trained to be told once a diabetic, always a diabetic. He did his own research, got trained by Loma Linda in lifestyle medicine because he wanted to make a difference with all the VA diabetics he was seeing in the VA, and basically found out that that was a lie, that westernized medicine trains doctors. Doctors only get 8 hours of nutritional training in medical school, which is unheard of, right? So now you look at that, and then you try to, put that doctor in a clinical situation where the patient's waiting 2 hours in the waiting room and gets 5 minutes of.
Let's just hold there for a second. I think Tim Keller might have been getting a phone call. Let's hope he comes back in real quick. But one of the things that Tim is right on about is the 8 hours of nutrition that these doctors get. It is absolutely insane when you consider that 8 to 10 years of going to school and studying, we get 8 hours of nutrition, which is why most of these doctors are asking these questions. What can we give the patient to improve their quality of life and minimize the side effects? So I don't understand why we cannot get these doctors to realize that there is a root cause, and a lot of it is going to be switched with understanding what the medicine is. We have got to be able to switch that medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. And the root cause, Mike, is refined fats, refined sugars, processed wheat, hydrogenized wheat, high fructose corn syrup, wreaking havoc on our bodies, and then all the chemical poisons and dyes that are in our processed foods. We got to get out of the inner aisle of the stores and eat more fruits and vegetables. That's another misnomer. They tell diabetics all the time you can't eat fruit. That's not true. I mean, fruit and vegetables are actually very good, and even if a diabetic spikes for a little bit while they start eating fruit or implementing more fruit in their diet, it will normalize. The body accepts fructose a lot better than it does, sugars and processed sugars. So once again, it just comes back to education. People got to be educated on nutrition and what to put in their bodies to be able to change. A lot of people, with the fast-paced lives we live, there's no one eating dinner with the family anymore. Kids aren't playing out in the park. Sedentary lifestyles on their gaming systems or, computers, and there's no exercise. So another thing, water intake, hydration, fiber. Fiber is so important for diabetics. If people, and hydration isn't, we tell our patients hydration isn't sweet tea and Mountain Dew. You gotta drink water.
Yeah, 100%. And they got to drink clean water because you can't trust what's in the tap anymore. This isn't our
No.
grandpa and grandma's spigot, that we had back in the 60s. The water that we have now is contaminated.
Absolutely. And there's good water systems out there. There's a website called watershed.net, has probably one of the best water systems in the country. Dr. Bob McCauley, he's got an amazing ionized water system that is awesome. We promote to all of our patients.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome, brother. If there's anything else that you want to let our audience know, please absolutely do. Give your website, how we can follow you, and then we're going to go to a quick commercial break, and I'm going to be bringing in our next guest, but we'll definitely have you come back on the show. We'll want to learn more about what you guys are doing, how you guys are helping, and learn more about that diet. I think that would be really interesting. But real quick, I'm going to
Well,
give you 60 seconds full screen.
uh, So usdiabetescare.com. Again, usdiabetescare.com. We have an educational series. Hit the Learn More tab. Actually, look at our website. Learn a little bit about who we are and what we do. Love Whole Family is our mission. That's what we actually do at US Diabetes Care. We have an amazing educational series that you can learn a lot about your diabetes and your diabetic journey through lifestyle medicine. And, again, everyone, education is power. Let's quit letting the big pharma, big medical dumb us down and tell us that, we can't change our health conditions when there's absolutely a lifestyle management platform that can. And not only, it's not just for diabetes. We have a lifestyle medicine platform that will change your life for any illness that you're facing. So, get the app, do yourself a favor. It's only, $120 a year, $10 a month to change your life. And after the first year, you won't need it.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you so much. That's incredible what you guys are doing, and we're going to definitely have you come back on to recap what you guys are doing there and educate people more on the kind of diet that they can do to try to reverse type 2, type 3, and like you said, live even better and use less insulin with type 1.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much for having me on as well.
Absolutely. God bless. We're just going to run to a quick commercial break, and then we'll bring on our next guest. Hey guys, Maha Mike here. I've got some exciting news for you. Our new partners at Farm Easy Bank are leading the way in affordable, trustworthy healthcare, bringing an impressive lineup of generic medications at prices that your family can actually afford. Not only that, but they are now offering ivermectin and fenbendazole, two compounds that are gaining attention, and unless you've been sleeping under a rock, you've probably heard about their incredible benefits. You can trust every single order that you get from Farm Easy Bank. Why? Because they come from reputable, reliable sources, and their commitment to quality means you get the same effectiveness you'd expect from the big box store without the outrageous price tags. In fact, you can save up to 80%. That's right, 80% compared to traditional pharmacy prices. On top of that, they offer fast, discreet shipping to the comfort of your home. And the best part is, you can use the coupon code MAHA2025 for 20% off any order over $199. This is a limited time offer, so don't wait. Take control of you and your family's health today. And stock up, because you would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So go to Farm Easy Bank, that's PharmEasyBank.com/Maha and start your wellness journey with trusted support and serious savings.
With everybody talking about making America healthy again, I thought today'd be a great day to talk to all my fellow patriots about the importance of making your homes healthy again. Well, we have proudly partnered with airwaterhealing.com and their revolutionary whole home air purification system. The V3 from Air Water Healing does 3,000 square feet of purification. It eliminates dust, mold, viruses, and odors. But here's the part I love. They require no filters to ever be changed and virtually no maintenance. Whether you suffer from asthma, allergies, seasonal bronchitis, or just want to protect your family from the flu or even greater threats, don't wait to get your V3 from airwaterhealing.com today. Use code Lindell for 20% off in savings and free shipping. That's promo code Lindell at airwaterhealing.com.
We've all known for a very long time that the COVID-19 vaccine was not the best friend for human people. We're going to be bringing in one of the most scary to the deep state cardiologists in the world, a man who speaks his mind and is going to enlighten us about what happened with Johnson & Johnson, why they rolled it out, knowing that there was going to be catastrophic side effects. Dr. Peter McCullough, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, man. We appreciate you. And thank you for your testimony in front of Congress and just not backing down for the American people. I think that's one of the most important things is to be truthful and not put profits above people. And you have stood behind and beside that. And I think one of the things that I respect the most about you is you're not afraid to combine traditional medicine and functional medicine. You see a world where they both come together, but you question first, what are the side effects? You look for transparency. Can you please talk to us where this lack of transparency with Johnson and Johnson was and how they were able to roll this out knowing that people were going to get sick?
Remember, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is nearly identical to the AstraZeneca vaccine. They're both made by Emergent Biosolutions, which is it's a biodefense company outside of Baltimore. This is an adenoviral vaccine, and it was the third one to enter the U.S. market under Operation Warp Speed. So it's not messenger RNA, but it's a different type of genetic technology. The great concern with the J&J vaccine is how much of the spike protein would be produced in each person's body. We know the spike protein is the potentially lethal part of the virus. It was a giant mistake to choose that part of the virus to be the vaccine antigen.
Right. And I know that there was some serious side effects with some women. There was about 6 or 7 women that had they were diagnosed with CVST immediately after getting. And that's something that's a very nasty, like that we wouldn't wish that on your worst enemy.
The published reports of central venous thrombosis were horrifying. In fact, the J&J program was paused for that. We're talking about a giant blood clot that forms in the brain, women more than men. 30% of the cases were fatal, required neurosurgery to drain the blood out. I can tell you no vaccine is worth a single person suffering that. Remember, vaccines only have theoretical benefits. They don't have real benefits because you never know if the vaccine really is doing anything. Depends on if you're exposed to the virus and a whole variety of other factors. So it's always safer to focus on treating an illness as opposed to trying to vaccinate for one.
Right. But in the case of Johnson and Johnson, there was a greater chance that they knew that there was something wrong. They knew that there was going to be some issues, and they decided, hey, everybody else is making money in America right now. Was it a profit grab? Was there some decisions up top where they're like, let's just roll this thing out anyways?
Well, chances are there was tremendous pressure from the U.S. government to, bring a product to market. You do wonder, though. I mean, Pfizer was on the market December 10th, 2020, then Moderna December 17th, 2020, then Johnson & Johnson comes on 2021. Why the third choice? It wasn't featured much by the CDC. So fewer than 10% of Americans ever took a J&J vaccine. The safest one of all was Novavax. That's no genetics at all, just 5 micrograms of the purified spike protein. Now, the FDA delayed that one. That one was ready to go summer of 2021. That was delayed for over a year. And to this day, the CDC rarely mentions Novavax, and it's the safest product.
Isn't that a coincidence that the safest one is the one that doesn't get mentioned at all?
It's sad. I never advised the vaccines for any of my patients because the virus was so treatable. I had published McCullough protocol, the most widely utilized treatment approach. The great concern about vaccinating into the middle of a highly prevalent pandemic is we'll simply promote resistant viral strains, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I know this is deviating a little bit from the topic that we're on, but I would love to get your opinion because everybody in our audience, it's still a very hot topic. Do you think the Trump administration saved a little bit of face with dropping the charges against Dr. Kirk out in Utah?
Well, they did the right thing. I can tell you, I learned later on that, thousands of patients saw Dr. Kirk. He provided, full informed consent. And then patients made their choice whether or not they took a vaccine or didn't. And because he disposed of some vaccine, that's irrelevant, disposing of a few thousand doses of a vaccine. Do you know the United States government has poured millions of doses down the drain because nobody wants these vaccines? So disposal of government property is not a crime that rises to the level of years of imprisonment. He was dragged through the legal process, which is time-consuming, expensive. And I think only under pressure did Pam Bondi basically step in and drop the charges. So great credit to Marjorie Taylor Greene and in the Congress, Tom Massey, Shannon Joy, who's a media host who went out. And they all raised enough awareness to get these charges dropped. They never should have been. They should never have allowed this case to move forward.
Yeah, good friend of the show, Matt Skall and Edward Zoll, Lauren Witzke, producers for Died Suddenly. They had gotten over 10 million views on X for driving attention to this. And I think that's one of the things that, a long period ago, we didn't really have a voice, Dr. Peter. We didn't have a voice. And now in the world that we live in, we have a very loud voice when people listen and share, like this interview here. Share this interview. Let people know. I know that this interview you and I are talking to today was the O'Keefe Media had literally had experts from Johnson & Johnson that said, I'll read it to you verbatim. It says, "We didn't do the typical test," says Joshua Riz, lead scientist in regulatory affairs for Johnson & Johnson, revealed on hidden camera that the typical clinical process was abandoned for the COVID-19 vaccine, knowingly bypassing standard testing protocols under pressure, like you just said, Dr. Peter, from the U.S. government and public demand.
This is shocking. Now, this comes in a line of essentially sting operations by James O'Keefe. So we have this one, Joshua Reese. Now, I looked him up. Turns out he's an associate manager for regulatory affairs, and he's in the skin products division. So it looks like he didn't work in vaccines. And he's a kid with a bachelor's degree who works for J&J for 13 years. But for him to render that opinion that, they had skipped all the safety testing, that in a sense people wanted a vaccine and we gave it to him. And then he kind of looked and said, someone's going to get sued for this. I think the first step is both Reese and J&J get submitted to the FDA Office of the Inspector General. That should also happen with Jordan Tristan Walker. He was the Pfizer physician who, James O'Keefe's team interviews him, and he, reveals all kinds of opinions about Pfizer themselves altering the virus, kind of what's called directed evolutionary research. And then the last one was Dr. Jay Varma. Remember, he was a New York City public health official who worked for SIGA, and he was the one ignoring all the public masking and lockdowns and going to these sex and drug parties. Varma at least loses his jobs with SIGA. I think Walker is still with Pfizer. Obviously, Reese is still with J&J. So what needs to happen, O'Keefe's doing great work, but now we need to take it to an execution level and begin this due process. Rand Paul is going to take things to an execution level by referring Fauci now to the Department of Justice with the idea that his 10-year preemptive pardon by the auto pen is not valid.
Yeah, and that's something that we were all wondering were some of these pardons going to be taken away because of how many they were? And if you knew that Biden, whether he's still alive or that's a clone, whatever it was, the guy could barely keep his eyes open during Senate hearings. I don't think he was able to sign more than 10 pardons in any single setting. And yet there was over 9,000 of them that were issued. So we're going to have to do some more digging deeper in that. But, Dr. Peter, I think the biggest issue that I have right now is looking at the United States and our citizens. We have a lack of trust in our government. So when a new vaccine or when a new medicine comes out that really has gone through the safety, that really has gone, and even if RFK comes out and says, guys, there's no bad ingredients in this, this was done the right way, we need this to boost immunity in America, there's no trust. They built an entire campaign. If you go back and watch the clips, again, irrelevant to our talking point, but it's relevant to the United States trust and transparency. We had Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, Pam Bondi, Donald Trump himself saying, we're going to release these Epstein files. Yes, it has nothing to do with what you and I are talking about, but you can't promise the people that something's going to happen and then just rip the Band-Aid off and say, you know what, it's old news. Let's not talk about that guy. These are the types of things that gets a country to no longer trust in its bureaucracy.
I'll give some constructive steps to rebuild trust. If I was president or HHS secretary, FDA commissioner, if I was in one of those three power positions, I'd do the following immediately. And that is remove all COVID-19 vaccines from the market. And then begin a broad sweep of who's been damaged by these vaccines and initiate research and clinical care programs for them. I'd immediately remove remdesivir from the market. I'd follow the WHO recommendation from 2020 not to use remdesivir in acute COVID-19. I'd remove direct-to-consumer advertising on TV. No more drug commercials on TV. Again, immediate. These would be executive actions. I wouldn't ask anybody for permission to do that. Of authority. And one of the problems in those three positions now, president, HHS secretary, and FDA commissioner, none of them are authoritative doctors. And Macri is a junior surgeon, podcaster. He doesn't carry the gravitas of someone who can make these moves. We had Surgeon General Luther Terry in 1964 write the Surgeon General report on smoking. He called all the leaders of medicine to Washington who didn't want to hear the bad news. All these doctors were smoking. He said, listen, guys, I got bad news. Smoking causes lung cancer. We need a modern day Luther Terry to basically show some courage and some backbone, because unless the public sees this, they will not have trust in the current administration, including RFK.
Here's a question that I'll ask you live on air. You probably already know the answer to it. If you go on most of the AI programs, or if you go on Google and you ask Google, who is the most powerful doctor in the world, who shows up?
I don't know. Who is it?
I want to see your facial expression when I tell you. Even though he is not medically trained doctor, Bill Gates is often considered the most powerful doctor in the world.
Oh my gosh! So it's somebody who couldn't even get through college. This is extraordinary. It goes to show you how artificial intelligence is so vulnerable to being poisoned, to being wrong. Do you know if you do a Google search and you ask a question, what are the top 10 side effects of the COVID-19 vaccines? The response is the COVID-19 vaccines are safe and effective. So you can see that all the search engines and artificial intelligence is poisoned. It's essentially useless. Everyone's talking up AI. Well, maybe AI is good to write a history report from ancient history thousands of years ago, but boy, I wouldn't trust it in politics. I wouldn't trust it in biopharmaceutical safety. Nothing in the pandemic. I wouldn't trust it on transgender, all the current controversies of today, because AI has this Achilles heel of being poisoned with opinion and in many ways inaccurate information.
Yeah, and not only that, but the other scary part is, why do artificial intelligence chatbots? Why do they have American-Israeli public affairs committees overseeing them? It's absolutely insane when you see that now we give so much credit, and again, credit to Tucker Carlson, right? Because Tucker was basically saying, he goes, to say that Israel, the state could have been involved in the handling of the Epstein. He says that's not anti-Semitic. He goes, and you get demonized for even mentioning that there could have been somebody interested in the whole Epstein case and the handling of it. It's the same thing with artificial intelligence. Like you just said, Dr. Bill Gates, right, who was a software engineer, who the only virus that he could ever protect was one that infected a computer, and he decided that he wanted to start administering vaccines, and again, there's not a lot of basis, there's not a lot of clinical research, but you've had countries that have come out and literally said, we did not have the autism rates that we did in this country until Bill Gates rolled out vaccines.
Well, Gates has been through the foundation a strong supporter of vaccines, but I got to tell you, you hit on autism, which is the existential crisis now for future generations. The CDC report from 2022 is astonishing. Autism is now 1 in 31 children. That means 3.2%. And profound autism, defined as nonverbal, IQ less than 55, head banging, can't use the bathroom independently. That's lifelong care needs. That's 27% of the entire autism pool and growing. We are going to be consumed with autism unless we can actually stem the tide. That means we need a systematic evaluation of risk factors for autism. And one of them that comes up in the literature is combination vaccination, which is getting more and more intense and frequent during childhood. Giving injections during critical period of neurodevelopment in children has to be carefully evaluated.
Yeah, and I think another thing that's broken is the United States government is not putting forth the research to be able to look at life-saving things. Like if you remember, there was that drug that was pulled back in the 90s that was helping, started with an S, Suramin. Was it Suramin that was helping? It was doing incredible things with the autism community. And same exact thing, like now we're starting to find out that, the nicotinol receptors, like there's parents out there, I'm reading in forums, they're like, hey, I slapped my nonverbal child who's hitting themselves repeatedly. They're like, people are telling me that I'm abusing my child for slapping a nicotine patch on their C1, C2 on their spine, but their children are starting to relax, and it's suppressing that ability for them to want to hit themselves. But I'll give you another one that's even worse. Our government right now has enough research and enough paperwork to know that ivermectin is such an incredible, powerful cancer drug. And I can tell you firsthand, we had a family member who was sent home to die by their 17-year primary care doctor with acute liver failure, a bilirubin level of 9.1. They said there's nothing more that we can do. They sent him home and said, get your orders in affair, call hospice in. When this family member of ours became non-responsive, we took ivermectin, we took minbendazole, we took DMSO, and we rubbed it together and started giving them belly button patches. Within 3 days, their liver started to process the bile, and they opened up their eyes and started drinking. 3 weeks later, we did lab work, and the markers had gone down 80% in the liver. And it's just unbelievable with all these stories that we're now finding out about these repurposed drugs. But more importantly, how do you activate your NK and your T cells? That's where the government needs to come in. And when Bill Gates goes and gives away $50 billion, imagine if he gave $50 billion to gyms and to organic farms. Imagine the good that would do for our country if we started eating and got rid of this processed food. The dude wants to leave. He wants to leave this planet with not a dollar in his pocket. Then maybe he should start putting money towards things that will actually help humanity.
Well, you make great points. The National Cancer Institute, I think, has enough data to immediately have clinical trials of ivermectin, fenbendazole, mebendazole, other products for adjunctive treatment in cancer. The word is out. People are starting to do self-investigation. With ivermectin, the preclinical data are pretty strong in a variety of cancers. With mebendazole, for instance, there are clinical data showing improvement in various cancer markers, tumor size, etc. For autism, it's grossly under-researched. There has to be a Manhattan Project on major investigation into autism. What's the best form of cognitive behavioral therapy? What's this gut-brain connection needs to be explored? What drugs, if any, can help autism? And then, of course, we've got to stop new cases from forming. We have now about 10% of parents now who are deferring on all childhood vaccines, letting the kids get out of that vulnerable neurologic period before any vaccines are being administered. They're following the World Council for Health advice on this, which is an international body. We're really coming to a tipping point. Senator Johnson's holding hearings now of vaccine-injured people in Washington. And it's not just the COVID shots. It's actually from the childhood vaccine schedule.
Yeah, and it doesn't surprise me because we know that menbendazole it helps with neuroinflammation, right? And that's autism is directly linked with neuroinflammation. Those kids, when we do the TMS at my wellness center in Boynton Beach, the left side of the brain it lights up like a Christmas tree when we put the neurotransmitters on it when we're doing their EEGs and we're looking at their brain scans. But specifically, when you look at the cytokines like the TNF-A and the IL-6, that is where menbendazole can come in and really help with autism. Now, I'm not saying it's a cure, right? I'm just saying, like you're saying, there needs to be more research on these repurposed drugs and how they can help the body. And again, we know that there's a gut-brain connection. And if you've ever had a family member or knew someone with autism, the absolute worst thing you can do is feed that child processed food, sugars, and food dyes, because then their brain lights up even more and they can't express to their mom or dad what they're feeling.
That's exactly right. Dr. Sabine Hazen has studied this, and I asked her that on my show. I said, what is the deal with autism? Is the autistic state, does it have a disturbed GI microbiome, or is the microbiome disturbed because they gravitate towards junk food? She says, I don't know, but I know this much, that if you actually change the microbiome favorably in autism, the behaviors dramatically improve. So there's a gut-brain connection. This was originally described by Andrew Wakefield in his 1998 Lancet paper, which was a seminal paper. And that stood as a valid paper, by the way, for 13 years in Lancet before the biopharmaceutical complex put a lot of pressure on Lancet to retract it. And all Wakefield was observing is that the GI tract and the lymph nodes that service the GI tract were abnormal in the children who developed autism after the MMR vaccine.
Wow. Now, this is a question that I don't know the answer to, so I'll ask you before we have to let you go. Does drugs like menbendazole, can that pass the blood-brain barrier?
It can. Fenbendazole, menbendazole, and one of the concerns would be lowering the seizure threshold. So, we use these carefully. I think they clearly are indicated in parasitic infections, and then they're used now in off-label cancer protocols. But I agree with you, the programs like you're involved with and our work here at the McCullough Foundation, we need funding to do research and publish. That's the only way we can make advancement. If we have this free-for-all of people just trying things, it's really hard to understand what's really working and what's not, because people with desperate conditions are prone to make claims that ultimately are not supported. That's exactly what's happened with vaccines, by the way. With great fear over time, people say, well, I have a vaccine, it's going to prevent the problem. And everybody gravitates to the vaccine, and it doesn't shake out. The same thing could happen with some of the products we've talked about here for cancer or neuropsychiatric problems. So we need organized research. Right now, our government agencies are not there. Listen, we've got RFK, HHS, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. I mean, they're paying attention to this. We need to see, requests for proposals right now. And let's see some high quality ivermectin, menbendazole, fenbendazole studies, at least in cancer.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your time. You've got one of the number one Substacks in the world. Can you just, before you leave, can you just give that Substack to our audience? So if they want to subscribe, I know you guys are always putting out at least an article a day, if not a few articles a week. Where's your Substack, and how can my audience follow you online?
Look us up at Focal Points Substack, and you can sign up, get an email every day. You'll be updated. We have updates now on the New World screwworm that shut down the southern border. Everybody wants to know what's going on with that. Of course, go to McCullough Foundation, McCulloughFND.org, and support us as we're out there in the media, as well as in Washington, and all of our scholarship and our work on justice and public policy. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you. Dr. Peter McCullough, always a pleasure having him on the show. We're going to run to a quick commercial break, and then we're going to actually air that clip for you guys of James O'Keefe when we come back. Hey guys, Maha Mike here. I've got some exciting news for you. Our new partners at Farm Easy Bank are leading the way in affordable, trustworthy healthcare, bringing an impressive lineup of generic medications at prices that your family can actually afford. Not only that, but they are now offering ivermectin and fenbendazole, two compounds that are gaining attention, and unless you've been sleeping under a rock, you've probably heard about their incredible benefits. You can trust every single order that you get from Farm Easy Bank. Why? Because they come from reputable, reliable sources, and their commitment to quality means you get the same effectiveness you'd expect from the big box store without the outrageous price tags. In fact, you can save up to 80%. That's right, 80% compared to traditional pharmacy prices. On top of that, they offer fast, discreet shipping to the comfort of your home. And the best part is, you can use the coupon code MAHA2025 for 20% off any order over $199. This is a limited time offer, so don't wait. Take control of you and your family's health today. And stock up, because you would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So go to Farm Easy Bank, that's PharmEasyBank.com/MAHA and start your wellness journey with trusted support and serious savings.
With everybody talking about making America healthy again, I thought today'd be a great day to talk to all my fellow patriots about the importance of making your homes healthy again. Well, we have proudly partnered with airwaterhealing.com and their revolutionary whole home air purification system. The V3 from Air Water Healing does 3,000 square feet of purification. It eliminates dust, mold, viruses, and odors. But here's the part I love. They require no filters to ever be changed and virtually no maintenance. Whether you suffer from asthma, allergies, seasonal bronchitis, or just want to protect your family from the flu or even greater threats, don't wait to get your V3 from airwaterhealing.com today. Use code Lindell for 20% off in savings and free shipping. That's promo code Lindell at airwaterhealing.com.
Do you have any idea the lack of research that was done on those products?
Joe Biden says that it's safe and effective, but like he didn't know.
There's no proof. I mean, none of that stuff was safe and effective. People wanted it. Who gave it to them? It's like, all right, you know what? Cancer patient's going to die anyway. I'm sure somebody's going to get sued for that stuff eventually.
Hi, Josh. Are you Josh Rice from Johnson & Johnson? You're going to deny your identity?
Yes, sir.
And you said that your vaccine was not safe and effective. You said that. Deep inside Johnson & Johnson's global machine is a scientist, a lead scientist, whose very approval or disapproval of J&J products can change millions of American lives. Meet Joshua Rees, a lead regulatory scientist at Johnson & Johnson. Joshua, in his role, leads the creation and execution of regulatory strategies for new and existing products across Johnson & Johnson.
We run the whole soup to nuts. Like, not only are we working on the products, but like everything that has to do with the drug. We have to make sure that you understand how to use the drug, how to be able to, prescribe certain pieces of information, how to communicate that to the patient.
Now, according to a Johnson & Johnson press release from December 2021, the safety and well-being of those who use the Johnson & Johnson vaccine continues to be our #1 priority. Now, for the first time ever, an official from Johnson & Johnson admits to our hidden cameras that the Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccine was, quote, not safe and effective, unquote. And the company wanted to, quote, just throw the vaccine creation to the wind and see what happens, unquote.
They're like, oh, Joe Biden says that it's safe and effective, but like he didn't know.
There's no proof. I mean, none of that stuff was safe and effective. We didn't do the typical test. Like the typical process, that's why it takes so long to get a product on market. The typical process is all this clinical trial testing and stuff in a small population. This was just, let's test it on some, lab models, analyze and see if it works and stuff like that, and just throw it to the wind and see what happens.
People didn't know that. Like the limitations.
That's what I'm saying. I'm sure somebody's going to get sued for that stuff eventually.
The lead regulatory scientist for Johnson & Johnson went into detail about how the federal government applied heavy pressure on Big Pharma in order to hastily create the Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccine, encouraging speed over efficacy or safety.
Do you have any idea the lack of research that was done on those products? Like, you shouldn't be surprised that this happened. It was pretty much the government kind of made a deal with pharmaceutical companies and kind of pressured the pharmaceutical companies, because we're not going to say no to the help, like the government. Like, the government's like, yo, these three big ass companies, we need help. We need to figure this out. You're solving this problem.
Was that Operation Warp Speed?
I mean, we basically just had a race to figure out who could solve it best. Like, people wanted it. We gave it to them.
The CDC has previously announced they're pulling the J&J vaccine from use in the United States. J&J claims this is due to the vaccine's declining use and the company's strategic shift away from the vaccines. But as you just heard, J&J's own regulatory scientist was well aware of the ineffectiveness of their own COVID vaccine.
There's something side effect that's gonna happen. And it's more or less, all right, what's the worst side effect that's gonna happen? And is that better than the benefit that the consumer's gonna get? It's like, that's the interesting thing that I've found about it, because it's like, all right, you know what? Cancer patient's gonna die anyway. So quality of life is the question in that instance, as opposed to whether you're curing something. You're not curing anything at that point. It's just, all right, are you going to have a nicer 6 months?
Now, I caught up with Joshua Rye in Toms River, New Jersey, on the Jersey Shore, to get clarification on what he meant by his comments on hidden camera. What led him to say this? What led him to tell a total stranger that his product was not safe and effective? Here's a little sneak peek of how this went. This is one of the most extraordinary interactions ever, maybe rivaling the one that I had with the other guy inside Pfizer back 2.5 years ago. Are you Josh Rice from Johnson & Johnson? You're going to deny your identity?
Yes, sir.
And you said that your vaccine was not safe and effective. You said that. You know, where is he going? He's going to run away. He's going to the women's restroom. Are you confused? I am a human man. I am allowed to take a peek in the man's restroom. You shouldn't be surprised that this happened. We have no idea. People, I got it from your mouth.
No.
Stand behind what you said and explain to us what you meant by it. Undercover investigations like these carried out by our OMG undercover journalists are pulling back the veil on the corruption and lies in our government, in our corporations, in the pharmaceutical industry. Remember, sometimes 60, 70, 80% of revenue for cable news organizations and other organizations in the news business come from Big Pharma. The last time we did an undercover investigation into Big Pharma, like Pfizer, just a couple weeks later, I was indefinitely suspended from the organization I created. But we are going to report the news and tell the truth without fear and without favor. But we need you to reach out to our tip line at tips@o'keefemediagroup.com or send us a message on our signal. That's 914-491-9395. You could even connect with me on Minect, the app, and ask me, James O'Keefe, a direct question. I'll get back to you. One of our reporters will get back to you at the other tip lines. Thank you and stay tuned.
Wow, that video with James O'Keefe, guys, that's incredible. You know, when you start thinking about, you know, now I know that Dr. Peter had said that, you know, the position that Mr. Riz was in their skincare division, but you'd have to imagine in the break rooms, these guys know what they're talking about. They know what they're doing. And what we're going to have to do is we need to start trusting that, you know, we know that the government is a foundation of a functioning democracy, but yet in recent years, with all of these, you know, undercover videos and these, you know, Project Veritas guys that are going out there, and we're hearing from the horse's mouth that the scandals in the polarization and misinformation and the inefficiency, guys, has left citizens just disillusioned. You know, not only are we feeling unheard, but we have to start demanding to our senators that we start researching things like ivermectin and cancer. We start looking at the root cause of autism. We start looking at the issues that we're having in this government where they want to cover up natural things that can help boost our immune system. We need transparency. People cannot trust what they do not understand. It's like walking into a courthouse. They make things so purposefully hard for you to understand that you have to go get an attorney. Why do I need to have a doctor for my general health? I should be taught in school that nutrition is the building block of living a long life. Exercise, watching what we eat. And I feel that this government has a big lack of accountability. We cannot trust the government when they don't take responsibility for all of the deaths that have happened from the COVID-19 vaccines. That means that we either need to start putting in third-party independent watchdogs. We need the public to see that the government can actually resolve problems, not just create them and allow them. This Band-Aid needs to be ripped off. If they want to rebuild trust, they have to start with transparency. I think another thing that the government needs to do is competence, right? Promises made, promises need to be kept. And they can't do this without follow through. The public needs to see that the government will actually fix a pothole, right? Or they're going to hold an elected or appointed person to the same standards. We need term limits on our Congress, and our Congress being able to invest in stocks of political decisions that they're making that directly impact those stocks. You know, my grandfather used to always tell me, if you show me a politician that went into government and he was broke and he retires a millionaire, I'll show you a corrupt politician. And, you know, I think last, I want to leave you guys with our government needs a little bit of empathy. Often the government feels distant and they feel abstract and like a machine rather than a community for the people working on behalf of other people. We need the citizens to know that those in power are being seen, they're being understood, and they're being heard. Empathy must be backed with policymaking, with laws that focus on how they affect ordinary people. Stop dropping the ball. And like Dr. Peta said, if you want to be able to really get the government to have some trust, pull the COVID vaccine. Completely pull it. We don't need it. You've got a greater chance of dying from the injection than you do of the actual virus. We now know this. Look at the people that got COVID and went to the hospital versus people that got COVID and stayed home. You know, tried things like hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, high-dose vitamin C, zinc. You know, all these things that God gave us to be able to have our immune system do what it is that it can do. And I think the more and more that we pull together, and I want to recap before I let everybody go. We had an incredible moment here with Dr. Kirk where the government was coming after a man for giving people their choice, right? His Hippocratic oath is to do no harm. And he stood for what he believed in. And he decided to dispose of thousands of vials of vaccines and inject patients who were given informed consent. And they said, I want to go back to living my normal life. I want to live my normal life. And I think that it was one of the greatest moments in medical freedom history that we were able to have all of those charges dropped against a guy who was just trying to help people. There's drug dealers out there. There's pedophiles out there. While P. Diddy, Epstein, and Maxwell are just flying by unscathed, we were going to go throw a guy in jail for 35 years who wanted to protect his people. So government, listen up. Be transparent, be empathetic, have some accountability, have some competence. And I'm going to see you guys on another episode in a few days of Maha with Mike. I want to thank my guest, but more importantly, we want to thank the man behind the curtain, Drake. We appreciate everything you do, brother. God bless you. We love you, and we'll see you soon.
I'm pointing to Mike Lindell. That man suffered. That man suffered. The FBI thugs went up to him and they took away everything he had. He suffered. And Mrs. Lindell,
Then you guys come up and serve me papers in Colorado. What is this? Sir, what is this?
My Pillow guy Mike Lindell says the lawsuit is a sham.
How dare him come and sue My Pillow?
They went after him. It was just terrible. This was a vicious weaponization of your government. But he's all, I'll tell you, he stood up. He's all man. He stood up strong.
Do I think you guys and them are a traitor to our country by what you did to My Pillow? Yes. We are made in America.
Lindell says he's lost hundreds of millions of dollars.
And nothing was going to faze him. And I want to thank you on behalf of everybody, Mike. You put up with a tremendous amount.
How do you guys sleep at night? You obviously don't have a My Pillow. That's a fact.
He's a great guy.